Hello everyone. Welcome to Resident Evil 4. So, this is a slightly peculiar situation, but this is the first and I believe only case, I guess we'll see as I continue to edit these, where I ended up losing my mic track, and I don't know why. This is actually quite a bit of time after I recorded this video footage. In fact, it's months later. I let myself build up a huge backlog before I started my channel, and I'm only sort of just now editing, the actual footage I recorded long ago.
I wonder if you can see me, Mr. Kennedy.
If you even scratch her, I'll break your bones.
First, we shall see if you can make it this far. I'll be waiting.
Shit.
So I think I know what went wrong. I'm not 100% sure, but I do actually remember having to re-record this section. I think because of some kind of video glitch. But, whatever the case, I am now, like, 3 months later, after having recorded a ton of other stuff and having just now gotten around to editing this series after the fact, which I wasn't even sure if I was going to put up. When I first started recording this, I wasn't sure if it was just going to be kind of the trial of me playing a game that I knew very well, or if it was going to be, actual content. Now that my channel is up and exists, and if you're watching this video and listening to what I'm saying right now, you will know that there's already quite a bit of content up on the channel. The entirety of my Resident Evil 7 playthrough, almost all of, well, certainly the entire first run through of Resident Evil 8, the Leon campaign of Resident Evil 2, and a handful of other things. And I recorded this video and this entire playthrough like way before I had done any of that. And this was kind of me getting my training wheels. So this is actually, I apologize if my commentary is so strangely out of order, but it's actually kind of a funny thing and maybe kind of interesting. I hope you don't mind this peculiar asynchronous perspective on what we have going on right now. But these things happen. There's only so much that we can do. I would rather record some audio after the fact than leave you all without any audio at all. So we are about halfway through the playthrough at this point. I can confirm for a fact that the main playthrough of this game is 20 episodes. So we are, in fact, just at the just now past the halfway point, at least by episode count. I actually don't know by hours. The clock tower is a really odd, funny sequence. It's one of the most beautifully detailed zones in the game. I mentioned it just at the end of the last episode, of course, that like this sequence in the game in general is, I think, the castle in general is gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. It's like one of the best looking areas of its generation, and I'm already kind of excited to see it rendered in higher res when RE4 gets remade, which I think is almost certainly going to happen as the next game after Resident Evil 8, I suppose, or Village, whatever you want to call it. But there are so many amazing environments that are so unique and so unlike anything else in the entire game. And there's a part of me that fears that when this gets remade, assuming it does get remade, that we're going to end up losing out on some of these kinds of environments. A difficulty in contemporary game design is that the higher resolution and higher detail everything is more labor to produce in most cases. And it's also more potential for things to go wrong. The result of which is, as people have sort of commented with some frustration about the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes, those games cut out some content. 2 didn't cut out much, but it cut out some. 3 infamously cut out quite a lot, which I'm immediately reminded of because, of course, one of the cut content sections is inside a clock tower. Which is kind of funny in retrospect, particularly like if they knew at the time of making 3 that they were also going to do 4. Oh, ritual preparation. Thanks to the efforts of the Novistadors, we have been able to capture Ashley. We shall prepare the sacred ritual as quickly as possible and make Ashley an official member of the Los Illuminados. While we prepare for the ritual, those of you who feel inclined can attend to our American friend. We should be able to hold off our friend for at least a little while by jamming the gears of the clock tower with something. I think we could jam the gears in 3 places, which should give us enough time to prepare everything for the ritual. Now go and entertain our American tourist. You'd think in the 2000s, well, I guess I would have to compare exact timeline, but you'd think in the 2000s Americans would know the term turista as a Spanish term for tourist, because there was a horror movie of that name that I believe was rather popular right around the same time. That might have come out just after this, though. I maybe misspoke. In any case, though, Resident Evil 3 cut out this clock tower, and you'd think that if they knew that the Resident Evil 4 remake was going to be in the pipeline, that they would have made the clock tower in that game in order to reuse assets for this game. There is also a clock tower in Resident Evil 2, now that I think about it, but it's nowhere near as elaborate. I'm not familiar enough with the 1999 version of Resident Evil 3 and what those environments demand to know what kind of environment would need to be created and at what level of fidelity. But, I don't know. Like, there has been much speculation. Oh, dang it. That guy really got me, huh? There had been much speculation that the setting and some of the particulars of Resident Evil Village was specifically positioned with a Resident Evil 4 remake in mind. Not only is the game heavily mechanically indebted to Resident Evil 4 and things like the updated inventory system compared to Resident Evil 7, which has a very similar inventory system to 2 and 3. And the fact that key items aren't held in your limited inventory space. Even some of the structural things, the number of enemies, the number of encounters, some of the locations. There's a lot of overlaps such that it kind of feels... It's one part homage to Resident Evil 4, but also I feel like in this day and age, with needing to overlap productions, I guess it's maybe not a need, but there's very often a desire to like maximize your investment in game development, and you do that by asset flipping, reusing assets, and finding ways. I mean, this is actually a thing that's gone on in games forever. A really famous one, I think, is in Super Mario World, that I think it's Super Mario World, that the clouds and the bushes are actually the same model, just with different color values inserted, but it's like they only needed one image to be generated, and this stuff has been going on in video games forever. as often as possible. Another, maybe actually the most famous one, of course, is Scorpion and Sub-Zero. And is it Lizard, Serpent? I forget all of their names. There's a bunch of those guys in Mortal Kombat, though, who basically all wear the same uniform, but with slight color alterations. That, again, is an asset flip. You can reuse certain character models, and it saves a lot of labor, and it also saves, I guess depending on the system and how you do it, it can actually also save cartridge space or disk space or whatever you want to call it. I save here, by the way, because this is actually one of this upcoming area past the bridge gets really tough. It's actually one of the toughest rooms in the game. So we'll see that in a moment, but it has been speculated that some of the choices going into Resident Evil Village's design might have been weighted in part by the desire to have assets reused for the Resident Evil remake, Resident Evil 4 remake, I should specify. The cultist leader, if you didn't see there, had a rocket launcher. When I mentioned that I had audio issues the first time around, which is why I ended up losing... Or I had video issues the first time I recorded this, so I had to re-record this section, and it was in re-recording this that I must have failed to do what I needed to do with my mic. I don't know. Whatever the case may be. I was really hyped, though. I do remember from my first video session of recording this, I actually shot the rocket in the rocket launcher, and it exploded. Which is really, really difficult to do. Like, in all the times that I've played through this game, I've done it very rarely. Like, almost never. And not that it's, like, impossible to do or anything. It's just, like, very often those guys aim and fire just fast enough that, like, unless you're using the shotgun or the TMP, it can be a little risky to go for it. The rocket launcher does a lot of damage if you're, you know, actually struck by it. So, I think I save again. Maybe? Maybe not. So yeah, asset flips or asset reuse, I don't take issue with... Oh, he was still alive. I feel like I occasionally see people online complain about it, and I always think it's kind of like weird and funny that people care. I guess it shouldn't be done... It shouldn't be done out of laziness, I guess, but I don't really like ever accusing developers of being lazy, especially with like how horrible working standards tend to be in the video game industry. Like, people are horrifically overworked. Here's that really tough room, by the way. So, the thing that makes it tough is that there are two, is it Garadors? I forget what they're called off the top of my head. The Wolverine guys with the arm claws. There's two of them in this room, which is really rough. Just because as you attack one, like, even if you trap one in the environment, you can aggro the other. So finding a way to, as rapidly as possible, take one out so you can hopefully just do the other pretty easily is fortunately quite difficult. I would say one of the most difficult parts of the game. One of the most difficult rooms of the game, I should say. Oh, and he found me somehow, but he missed me. Dang it. I don't super closely remember this segment, and I didn't pre-watch all the video, so I actually don't totally remember how well I handled this section. I hope I do okay, because it's not easy, and more guys have just been released into the room, including one of the golden helmet guys, which extra tough because I can't just, you know, one-shot him. But I think that takes most of those guys. We'll see in a moment, I suppose. He gets a funny little loop around, which is a means of escaping the Garradors, or whatever the name may be. I can't recall. But yeah, I've never taken an issue with asset flips. People get really weirdly mad about it. People who like don't work in creative industries seem to care, and I don't get it. One asset flip that I'm familiar with, for example, was like with the recent remakes, was Ethan's car from Resident Evil 7. Got asset flipped, and it's the car that Jill breaks into in the Resident Evil 3 remake, and she drives that and crashes it into Nemesis as part of like the big explosive intro. Totally harmless thing, and also totally believable, because it's like cars are mass produced. Like there's no reason why another of that car wouldn't exist. Like it totally makes sense. I don't. Yeah, there's also definitely some AI director stuff going on in this scene, because the Garradors are definitely drawn to you, even if you haven't made any noise. At least a little bit. Like there's a little bit of magnetism. Like they're a little biased to create tension. $15,000 pesetas. Very nice. I don't care about asset flips. Like I always kind of feel like, particularly in this like industrial world in which we live, of course things are gonna repeat, you know? Like, you know, there's no reason why. I don't know what specific car Ethan drives. It's kind of like a classic muscle car. So let's just call it a Challenger. Like, there were tens of thousands of those, maybe hundreds of thousands, produced. Like, I don't think it is unbelievable at all that, you know, one would exist in Raccoon City. And it's not like it's anachronistic either, because like Ethan isn't driving a 2017 car, or I guess, yeah, it is 2017 in Resident Evil 7. He's not driving a 2017 car in in his game. He's driving a classic car. So it totally makes sense to me that, you know, one could just be in a parking lot in 1998. And sure, it's like a coincidence, but I don't care. Like, whatever. I don't love, like if the exact suits of armor from Resident Evil 8 show up in the castle in 4, the remake of 4, I won't be crazy about that. But like, I don't know, if they reuse a marble texture, like, yeah, like marble comes from quarries. Like, it's, you know, a castle in Spain and a castle in Romania, both having the same genus of marble.
Ashley.
It's not unbelievable. Oh, sorry.
Leon!
Mr. Kennedy, don't you know when it's time to throw in the towel?
No!
satisfying sound of one's impalement.
Won't fall for this old trick.
How dare you! No more games! Kill him! Kill! Quickly! We shall prepare for the ritual!
Leon, you're alive.
So maybe you have 9 lives, but it doesn't matter now, Mr. Kennedy. I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
Say whatever you please. Die, you worm!
Absolute top tier Resident Evil camp right there. The floor trap, the grappling hook, the shooting the bell to hurt his ears, and then the phrase for which this video gets its acronym title, "Your right hand comes off." I think it's one of the funniest, dumbest quips in the entire series. It's so good, and so dumb, and like that line alone I feel is like why I talk about how Leon is kind of a dork. I think I don't know if I brought that up in this playthrough or in some others, but like he is a dorky person trying to be cool, or like or a dorky person's vision of coolness or something. I don't know. In any case, asset flips. I just don't really care. I think it totally makes sense. You know,
Got some rare
save
things
some
on
labor.
sale. What are you selling? Is that all?
Don't, you know,
Thank you.
if it like, I don't know, if it saves your employees
Is that all, stranger? Is that all?
a few
Thank you. Is that
days of
all,
labor,
stranger?
a few
Thank
weeks
you.
of
What are
labor
you
even,
buying?
you know, I think it totally makes sense that things would be mass manufactured. And I also kind of foresee that, oh yeah, new shotgun has been added, the Striker. It's a it's probably the best shotgun in the game. I stick with the main one. All 3 of the shotguns
What
I
are
honestly
you
think are good
buying?
in this game. But oh yeah, I probably should upgrade capacity here. I hope I do. I hope I'm smart enough, because I mostly unloaded my chambers on the Verdugos, or on the Carradors. Verdugo is the boss we're about to fight.
Come back
Don't
anytime.
hear though. Oh, interesting. Okay. Maybe I wait until I unload even more of that ammo, because you get the whenever you upgrade, the gun becomes fully loaded, and you just get that ammo. So, one of the best ways, especially for magnums, one of the best ways to get magnum ammo is to try to empty it out before you upgrade capacity. Up we go. So, in this section, we are going to face a boss that I knew was upcoming. I don't remember if I mentioned it last session or not. I'm trying to swipe at bats, by the way. They're just annoying, and I think they can hypothetically drop money. Anyway, we're about to go to a boss section, which is a big part of why I've been carrying around the rocket launcher for so long. This is kind of a puzzle boss, and I kind of for all the love that I have for the Legend of Zelda series, I very often dislike puzzle bosses in most games. Oh, dang it. Man, I should have... Come on, past me. You should have paid for the upgrade and got 4 free. Geez, 6 free magnum ammo. So puzzle bosses work in some games. I feel like, for the most part, the Resident Evil series puzzle bosses are bad. Not exclusively, but when I say puzzle boss, what I basically mean is that you are not just attacking them. You need to do some kind of special sequence of events to expose a weak point. When I say special sequence of events, I'm not just talking about dealing damage to them in order for them to expose a weak point. I'm really talking about like these weird, obtuse things. This puzzle boss is actually pretty good. I actually kind of like this boss, and what's kind of cool about it is that there are multiple ways to win, and you could actually brute force it. You don't even have to engage with the mechanics at all, like none of them. So this, I think, is like a good example, but I feel like that this model of boss, this is his right hand, the Verdugo, which means executioner in Spanish, was something that they really carried a lot into Resident Evil 5 and a little into Resident Evil 6 as well, where all of these tanks we've been passing are liquid nitrogen, I believe. He does not come out until we flip this switch. The door has become locked. Elevator is now coming because we fixed the power. It takes 4 minutes for the elevator to arrive. And when we round this corner and go to the door to reset the door connection, I think is what needs to be. Yeah, open the shutter. Here comes the Verdugo. The idea is that throughout all of these various environments, you are supposed to kite the boss around, ideally time knocking these over when he's nearby, and then deal damage to him with your guns. I don't do that. Shoot him with a rocket launcher, because I don't necessarily care about engaging with these mechanics. I've played this game many times, and I can confirm as a matter of fact that I have beaten this boss the correct way. I've beaten this boss the incorrect way many times, because there are multiple incorrect ways that, as I mentioned, are also maybe technically correct. The game gives you the option. So you can run around, freeze him, do damage with regular guns, but he only stays frozen for a little while. This is actually mechanically quite similar to the sisters fights in Resident Evil 8. I guess I've never really thought about that. Anyway, you run around, he'll occasionally try to stab at you. You can use more of the cans, but like he won't necessarily be close enough for you to hit him with the liquid nitrogen, so you actually do need to time it. What's kind of cool is that you can straight up just shoot him when he's not frozen, and he does actually have a life bar. He just has an extremely large health bar. I forget what it is. I forget how the damage scales in this game, but it's like, I think he maybe has the most health of any boss in the game. And he is
Salazar is having difficulty taming
cutscene time.
the American pig. Salazar had his chance. Krauser, go get a girl. Oh, and dispose of this swine while you're at it.
Consider it done.
That's our introduction to Krauser. Later in the game, I know for a fact that I stopped and talked quite a bit about how I think Krauser was kind of misused. because this is the last we will see Krauser until, I think, Chapter 5-3, something like that. And he only shows up in like 2 or 3 cutscenes in the whole game. On top of which, he is like weirdly misused, I think. Like his reveal in that scene means no. Oh, Luis's memo too. The first Castellan buried the Las Plagas deep underground beneath the castle to hide their very existence. But when Salazar released the Las Plagas, no one thought he could bring them back to life, because when Salazar found them, they were all just fossilized remains. Everyone knew the parasitic organisms could not survive without hosts, that they couldn't sustain life on their own. But when the Salazar and his men excavated the remains, it appeared as though the Las Plagas were just waiting to be discovered so that they could resurrect. Several years later, unexplained convulsions started occurring in the villagers who helped with the excavation of the Las Plagas. Then one day, all of a sudden, these villagers turned into violent savages. They later found out it was caused by the Las Plagas. Although they appeared fossilized, they were able to survive long years by lying in a dormant state at the cellular level, remaining in a spore-like form. Apparently, during the excavation, the villagers inhaled the spores, and within their bodies, the parasites became active again. This is how the Las Plagas were resurrected. Even as I'm writing, the excavation of the Las Plagas continues. God only knows how many of the Plagas have been resurrected, not to mention the countless number of ganados that have been created. Their inhumane activity must be put to an end. If they are not stopped, people around the world could turn into victims of this crazy cult organization. So, Krauser, his face reveal is almost supposed to be kind of a thing. Like, you're supposed to care about it, but this is his debut of the series. Like, his facial debut is nothing. Like, we have no idea who he is. And then by the time we see him next, he's practically out of the game. We get, like, 2 cutscenes with him. We'll get there. I'll talk about that later. In any case, the Verdugo, you can just straight up shoot him, and if you do enough damage, you will kill him. Freezing him, I think, quadruples or quintuples your damage, something like that, which is probably the best way to kill him. Rocket launcher plus frozen is instant death. I don't know if a rocket will kill him when he's unfrozen. That I don't quite remember. But, I don't know. You can also actually, when it said that the elevator takes 4 minutes, you actually don't have to kill him at all. He is one of the few, one of very few bosses in this game that you can just not fight. If you just want to kite him until the elevator comes, that is possible. That's doable. I've done it. It is, I think it's a good, this is actually a good case for a puzzle boss, better than most. 5 gets bad about it, and I probably talk about that in other videos, so I really should actually re-listen to all these audio things. I'm just about to do another shooting section, so if you don't want to watch this, feel free not to.
Welcome.
But one thing that I think I talked about at the end of this video, and I can't remember if it was this video or a different video, but I want to bring it up. If it was this video, if you've heard it before, feel free to skip. If you hear it again later, skip then. One of the interesting influences of this game that I don't know if it even was an influence, but I think maybe it was, or at least I could probably remember doing that. Nope, I've never heard anybody talk about. There's this Italian horror film called Burial Ground Nights of Terror, which is a zombie film from early 80s, kind of part of this like Italian wave of zombie films. That all were following Dawn of the Dead, which is kind of a big deal in Italy. It was distributed by Dario Argento, the guy who did Suspiria. So it led to this huge wave of imitators and zombie films. This Burial Ground Nights of Terror, check it out. It's not very good, actually. And it's kind of gross and weird, but I think that it is maybe worth watching. I think it's plausible that it inspired this game. Dang it, I missed the special one. Anyway, it has zombie monks who wield scythes and mutter, and it's in this big, resplendent house. All of which, yeah, this is just an aborted run. All of which I could foresee having influenced the aesthetic of this game, and I think if you see the scythe-wielding zombie monks, you'll totally see what I'm talking about. I'm sure I also mentioned Tombs of the Blind Dead, which is a Spanish zombie film, also about zombie monks. I'm sure I've mentioned that in other videos as another influence, but the thing that I think Burial Ground Nights of Terror really lent to this game is Salazar. Burial Ground Nights of Terror has a really gross, kind of offensive subplot, I guess you could call it. It was, as this kind of tacky grindhouse film, it really was willing to offend and not be polite, whatever you want to call that. Missed it again, dang. Really not doing great this particular day, apparently. They cast an adult dwarf, like an achondroplegic dwarf, to play a child in the story. So they have a character, the little boy, being played by what is very obviously an adult man. So that's gross. That's a bad thing. But yeah, the thing that's really weird about it is he actually kind of looks like Salazar. I at least facially, I think so. There's actually a much grosser story. The actual subplot is that not only is there's this child played by an adult dwarf, but specifically the character who is a child who's played by an adult is like actually like in love with or sexually attracted to his mother, which is like a weird thing across the board, but made weirder by like the kind of tacky politics of this weird casting thing that they did, which like looks very fake. Anyway, I think it influenced this game. I even months later, even though this is like a old playthrough, I'm reminded that I actually still need to go back and play Assignment Ada and Separate Ways. So maybe during those we can talk a little bit more about Burial Ground Nights of Terror and Tombs of the Blind Dead and Dagon. The Dagon film adaptation based on the Lovecraft story actually takes place in Spain, I believe. Or maybe it's just a Spanish adaptation. Anyway, there's some other cool stuff we could talk about. So thanks so much for enduring my after-the-fact audio. I hope I'm not retreading territory that I talked about at the time too much, but I think that, I don't know, I think that I remembered what I needed to cover, or like iterated enough that hopefully there isn't too much of an issue here. But thanks so much for watching, everybody. Next episode should get back to regular audio, and I hope I don't have to do this again, because it's not super fun having to sort of double the amount of work because whatever the length of recording the original footage was, I have to literally redo this. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next episode.